If you're the one that's not rushing to judgment, you're not trying to get your pound of flesh out of somebody, that makes you different. Because the world does all of that. He says, vengeance is mine. In other words, it's not your job to repay what was done or make sure that there is some sort of comeuppance or payment for what was done. Justice is not your problem. I know all you blues are having a meltdown. Look, justice is his, not yours. Wanting justice is fine. Recognizing that something isn't right is fine. Recognizing that it's not your job to fix it or make it right is hard. Therefore, be perfect, as your Father in the heavens is perfect. Again, the word underlying that in the Hebrew would have been tamim, which means to be filled with integrity. Okay? In other words, make the effort towards perfection. The expectation of you being perfect is not there. The expectation of you wanting to be and making the effort to be is what's there. Now, the Father is actually perfect. And as we strive to become him, we will become more and more like him or perfect. But we have to really, truly embrace that you own a really important part of this, which is preparing yourself. And you're thinking, well, I don't know what to do. No, you don't. But when you do, you need to do what you learn. Applying the information from above is your job. Seeking the information from above is your job. Not sitting there laid back just expecting like a baby bird to be fed. Now, I know I used the baby bird analogy. We were talking in the announcements about if I was at Sukkot, I'd sit back. But you know what? I would have done my part. I would have gotten myself to Sukkot, gotten into the building, sat in the tent, got in the chair, ready to receive. Baby bird didn't put itself in the nest, didn't do anything. It just sits there wherever it was put to begin with and hopes somebody will show up and feed them. I had to find, using the analogy, where to go, where the food was, and then be ready to receive it, etc. This is actually the very first written marriage manual, okay? Because it all ends in a wedding. It starts off with a man, and then the creation of a woman, and then they're together, and then it ends in a wedding, all the way in Revelation. So if you want to understand why you struggle in your marriages, because you haven't understood the two roles. The husband has to understand the role that is talked about by the apostles when they say, I'm talking about a husband and wife, and then he says, actually, I'm talking about Yeshua and the body. The roles, it's basically a role of headship and supporter to the headship. There's a role that you play on either side of that. And being human beings, guess what? We have opportunity, depending on who we're interacting with, to do either one of those roles based on the relationship because we're in the middle. The fine linen. So she's clothed in this fine linen. This is the righteousness, or let's call it the right application of the requirements done by the set-apart ones. That's what forms the garment. Don't get confused with saying, well, it's the righteousness of the set-apart ones, which after all, wait a minute, I thought all the set-apart ones just had the imbued righteousness of Yeshua. Then what's the point of all this? You see the difference? If Christianity's right, then this verse doesn't make any sense. Well, sure, it was just given to her. She was given Yeshua's right. No, that's not what it's talking about. She has clothed herself. She has prepared herself, and the expectation is that she's wearing, clean and bright, all the right application of the set-apart ones. The right application of what? What is well-pleasing to the Father, which is what? Torah. So we get to the book of Hebrews and hear that Yeshua is in the order of Melchizedek, a high priest of the order of Melchizedek. According to that order, he's not doing Levitical things. He's not presiding over sacrifices. He's not doing temple service. But he's doing things according to a different priesthood, a priesthood that predates the birth of Aaron and the establishing of the Levitical. This is confusing. Other people are teaching differently. I don't want to get in trouble with them, and I don't want to get in trouble with me, but I'm just saying is we have to understand that rather than understand that they were replacing each other. There was the Melchizedekian, then it stopped, and then there was the Levitical, and then it stopped, and then there was the Melchizedekian. What if they were concurrent? What if they were going at the same time? He said, but the priests have done violence. So he thinks it's a violent act to not separate these things, to not make a distinction between them. Okay? We've talked about when somebody basically has disregarded, say, a contract. They'll say things like, you might as well have just torn it up. In other words, you ripped it to shreds, you tore it up, you've done violence to it. A marriage can be that way. Any relationship, you just tore this thing apart. I mean, the language used is violent. You're just tearing us apart. You're allowing this thing to tear us apart. That's a violent act. The imagery is violent, right? So these Kohanim have torn up and disregarded setting apart or distinguishing between the set apart and the profane, the clean and the unclean. I think they are aggressively convinced that what they're doing is right, but they're doing it in their own image. I've had people work for me over the years who kept telling me, we've got your vision, Rabbi. Everything we're doing is your vision, and then it wasn't really my vision. But they would argue that it was. But I'm the one who gets to decide looking at it if it actually is what I wanted. And that's what I think is happening here. They want Abba's vision their way. Okay? So it's their version of Torah observance, covenant, where Abba knows my heart, which means I should be able to do whatever I want my way and he should be okay with it. That's what you mean when you say that, by the way. That's why you will never hear me say, Yahweh told me to tell you, like all these Sunday guys do. Oh, I have a word from the Lord for you. It better be from him or you're guilty of this. And you get that every show, somebody's getting up to saying how they got a word. You can even watch some of the Messianic broadcasts and find people when they let the mic go around saying, the Lord gave me a word to share. Well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I'd be really careful with that. Now, I do tell you, thus said Yahweh, all the time when it says it here and I read it to you. Okay? That's when you're hearing thus said Yahweh, because it actually says, and Yahweh said to Moshe. See, there you go, thus said Yahweh. What is allowing all the nonsense in the quote-unquote body? Leadership, or lack thereof. Don't look at what the body's doing without looking up the chain and figure out who's letting it happen. And often you'll realize there's nobody home. You go up and there's nobody there. There is no leadership. I tell you what, at least I can say one thing with total confidence. If m.t.o.i is screwed up on any level, there's a leader that gets all the blame, and that's me. At least there's a leader that gets the blame, okay? But a lot of places you go, there isn't anybody. There's no leadership. And then the body as a whole is such a mess because there's so many leaderships that are on every possible page in the book different from each other.